There we go. Got it, got it, got it.
Are you sure this time?
See, this is why I don't deal with this kind of stuff. I program the machines and try to make them work.
I just hit it until it works and then go, hey!
And you wonder why I have to fix your computer all the time.
Yes, there we go.
By George, I think he's got it.
There we go. It's worked. Fantastic. Sorry about the slight delay to the start of the show, guys. A couple of technical hitches. Only 20 minutes late. That's pretty good by my standards. Guys, very quick introduction. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Runs. I am the current EU Division Manager for the Steel Jaguars. And we are currently doing our first Run Hot or Die podcast. With me today I have Hylius, Happy Spawn and Protection from the veritable Eridani Light Pony. Hi guys.
How you doing? How's it going?
Oh, fantastic. And not at all stressful, I promise. Okay, first question then, guys. Who are Eridani Light Pony? Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Well, as you can probably guess, we are a My Little Pony themed mercenary corps. We started just a little bit over a year ago with myself and Happy and a few other founding members. I mean, overall, we're pretty easygoing lot, and we're not above making fun of each other while we're playing the game or just on the forums in general.
Okay, cool. I mean, did you set out with having My Little Pony as the theme for your Merc Corps? Was that your guiding principle for setting this up, or was it just something that evolved?
Well, not... Go ahead, Happy.
Basically, it started, one late night back about a year ago, and Helios links me to the new web page for Mechwarrior Online. I take a look at it, I'm like, this is awesome. And then I started drinking. A few hours into it, we're just kind of breezing over everything, this and that. And Helios links me to the Let There Be Pony thread down the off-topic discussion. I just like, oh, this is terrible. They're here too. And up to this point, I wasn't a pony fan. I mean, I hadn't seen any of the show or anything. And somebody had done one of the ponies as a parody of the Eridani Light Horse logo. And me, in my drunken state, and Helios in his sleep-deprived state, decided this is a perfect idea, and thus the Eridani Light Pony was born.
And what better reason to start a Merc Corps? Drunken antics and sleep deprivation.
Exactly.
All the best Merc Corps founded like that, I'm certain. So, what are your kind of principles? What do you look for in your new recruits? How do you sort of run things within your team?
Well, we do basically two basic primary things. First of all, we are for fun primarily, and that includes competitive or casual play. If we're not having fun, we're just not going to do it. But the main thing is, and something we tell every applicant, you got to be able to take a joke or two. We are very laid back. We're a group of friends. When you're with friends, you make fun of each other. And if you can't take a joke, you're just probably not going to make it. So that's one of the big things we're looking for. If they're ready to have fun, and if they can take a joke and look and hang out with some fun guys.
And competitive play is not at all required or expected, but it's there as an option, something you'd like to do.
Yeah, I mean, our big thing is we're trying to build a community, something that will maybe even outlast Mechwarrior Online when, someday, MechWarrior Online 2 comes out or whatever. I mean, we're here to build a community that's going to last a while, and that will expand to other games or whatever. But I mean, primarily we're building that family almost, for a lack of other words.
So you didn't set out with a sort of competitive mindset or anything like that. You didn't set out with this idea to build the best team as such.
Oh, not necessarily. I mean, I enjoy competitive games, but I played on some of the top competitive teams for World of Tanks. And playing the competitive scene there, where you have to play the same maps every night with the same people, practicing night after night after night, it just became a second job, and that's not what I was looking for when it came to Mechwarrior.
That's understandable, that's understandable. So, I mean, obviously you guys came from Mechwarrior, Ilias, yourself, you said you came from World of Tanks. Did you have a lot of previous Mechwarrior experience? Were you into Battletech, or did this just look cool when you decided you wanted to have a go at it?
I think just about all of us have played the Battletech tabletop game, like all of the command staff anyway, and then most of our members have some experience in the Mechwarrior universe. Most of us got in around Mechwarrior 2, Mechwarrior 3, kind of peak of the series, but you've got some guys that have been playing since the original DOS Mechwarrior, and we've got a few members that have just started, have never heard of Mechwarrior before, so it's a pretty healthy mix.
Alright, okay, well that's cool. I mean, there's a lot of teams out there who are very selective, and they look for guys that have played previous. So again, you're really driving for that welcoming all walks of life, basically. Now, I have to ask, is it compulsory to like ponies in order to join?
Actually, not at all. We've got a lot of members who have never even watched the show, have no interest in the show. I think at worst is you basically have to be able to put up with it.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I mean, we have quite a few members that played with us back in beta on the TeamSpeak server, and they liked us enough, even though they didn't care about ponies. They wanted to apply to us, and we're more than welcome to have that. In fact, one of our founding members, he doesn't watch the show, but he puts up with it because he likes hanging out with us.
Well, and even going back to, how we started, again, I'd never watched the show. I mean, I knew it existed, but, I mean, I until after we'd started, and Hilliard started sending me all these links and spamming me with ponies, and I started to realize this is a huge thing. I mean, at first I just thought it was this great parody idea. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. And then the alcohol wore off, and I realized, oh God, what have I done?
So you talked about, one of your key goals is to build a community. Do you have any other sort of long-term goals, either within or without Mechwarrior Online?
Not at the moment. Again, we're setting up this sort of community of friends. We've always been about fun, and it's just one of those things. Our members are a driving force, and so if they're not having fun, then the corp's not having fun. We're probably not going to do it. If they are, we're going to continue doing it, but we don't have any specific long-term goals of we must do this and this, or we need to reach so many members. We don't even worry about that right now.
I mean, that sounds fantastic, and it's a very laid-back, friendly sort of atmosphere, which is really, really nice to see, especially from a team that has done so well competitively, I mean, moving on a little bit more towards Mechwarrior Online specifically, how are you guys enjoying Mechwarrior at the minute? How do you think it's going?
I think overall the core gameplay is fantastic. I think that's one of the things that's really holding it together through what's a pretty bumpy open beta. The netcode's obviously got a number of issues. The game is a little lacking in content and polish, and there's a lot of very small complaints that keep coming up again and again. But because the core gameplay is so good, it's one of those things that gives the game a real shot of it's hanging in there, because it's a fun game to play. And it's deep, it's tactical, it's complex, and it's what we're looking for.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, obviously, we've just come into the open beta period. Do you think it was too early for open beta, or do you think they timed it right? What's your feelings on that?
Way too early. Way too early. But it's one of those things. Everybody seems to be rushing these open betas out the door as fast as possible, and I have no doubt that it's a marketing decision more than a developer decision. And I don't know what the rush is to get these games out before they're really ready to be presented to the public. At the same time, I realize they need to monetize as quickly as possible, build up a consumer base. But, it's one way or the other, there's going to be trouble on how, you're going to get complaints for doing it this way. So, it's bumpy.
And even, looking at, World of Tanks being the last game that I played, through open beta, they released that game in, 5 months? 5-6 months they went to open. Or actually, they released live within 6 months, I think. And that was pretty rough, but even then, even compared to World of Tanks that a lot of people thought was rushed, Mechwarrior Line even seems rushed even compared to that.
You have to remember that relatively speaking, PGI is quite a new company. They haven't had a great number of games under their belt. So, considering the relative lack of experience within that commercial, and particularly within this kind of free-to-play realm and online playing, how do you think they're doing as a newer company?
I think they're doing about as well as can be expected. Like I said, the core gameplay is really good. It's hard to make a game that has solid core gameplay like that. So, it's hard for me to hold a lot of complaints. They seem to be a little hit and miss about listening to the community, and sometimes it kind of feels like they're developing from inside a black box without a lot of transparency. I'm sure a lot of the fans would like to know a little bit more about what's going on in there. But they're doing a good job for making a game. It's impressive, and I wish them the best.
Yeah, they've definitely done a outstanding job so far, and all companies have their bumps on the road. Look at PlanetSide 2. It went open not too long ago, and most people's opinions that I know of that have played it is it's also very rough, lacking in content. I think it's just part of the protection mention, part of the trend nowadays. You get it out in open beta as fast as you can, start making money, and since it's free to play, the expectation is it's going to be constantly added on. But PGI, so far, they've done a good job, I think.
You brought up two very, very good points there, actually. Is, again, PlanetSide 2 has just come out, and was the closed beta and the alpha was very, very optimized for their machines. Since the open release, they've had to downgrade an awful lot of stuff, and it's really showed in the performance. And more you're getting companies that are also doing that sort of closed beta, open beta thing as a marketing tool. You only need to look at Blizzard and Mists of Pandaria for that. They had an entire year of open beta, which was pretty much a marketing ploy. Do you genuinely think this is a good way to go, or do you think companies should perhaps wait before and deal with a little bit more polish for their games before releasing them?
It's a little tough to say because every game is going to be different, and I realize that at some point, some company needs to try and take back open beta for actually being beta, but at the same time, it's hard to change public perception of that.
Yeah, one thing you definitely have to look out for in these open betas, the main point is to not only get the testing, that is part of what beta is, but they're mainly looking to start making money. Well, the problem is that if your product is too rushed, you're going to drive off people instead of dragging them in. Is someone who opens up Mechwarrior Online today, looks at it in its current state, are they going to say, yes, this is a game I want to play, I'll spend a few dollars on it even, it looks really good, or are they going to say, this looks incomplete, it looks rushed, I don't want any part of it, and they'll never come back again? It's just a decision you have to make in the process.
Yeah, and again, that's another point. You can see in a lot of the forum posts recently, a lot of the new players are kind of struggling to get into it. They don't feel like they've got enough direction. They're not entirely sure everything that's going on, and they're confused by some of the issues. I think there's a genuine expectation that it's a much more complete game than it actually is. Do you think that could have long-term repercussions for retention of potential new players?
definitely could. I mean, there's a lot of things missing right now that really aid a new player. They got some training videos and stuff up. It's nice. But honestly, your average player, they're not going to look at those. They're going to expect to hop right in. You're lucky if they even look at what the control scheme is, and they're expecting to play instantly. And that's sort of the gameplay design you have there. But, I mean, right now, if someone hops in and they get, they have all these LRN trial builds, for example. Most people hopping in, they don't know about minimum range. They're trying to fire them at point blank, and they're wondering, why are my missiles bouncing? And nothing there says explicitly, oh, this has a minimum range, by the way.
Yeah, the lack of a genuine tutorial is definitely something I would have waited to have in the game before launching the open beta. That one just seems like common sense.
Yeah, for my part, I certainly think that's something missing. Are there any other sort of technical things or things that you think should be prioritised within MWO at the moment?
Mainly maps and new maps. I mean, that's the one thing that everybody complains about with every game is new content. And, I mean, adding in a new weapon or something like that, yeah, that's nice and all, but, I mean, it's really about more variety. I mean, when World of Tanks released, I remember people were always complaining about the lack of, variety in the tanks available, and there was, 5 times as many, it seems, vehicles in that game as compared to Mechwarrior Online. And, but I also understand, having done some map design and 3D modeling, I realize it takes a long time to do some of that stuff, but it still is one of those things, you don't have enough new stuff to keep people interested. They're going to, get bored and wander off, and that's the one thing I really kind of fear is that, the game's going to start dying out before it really even takes off.
Netcode. They really need to fix the netcode. I think we're all sick of shooting lasers 20 feet in front of a Jenner to try and hit it. I think it was working great, not too many patches ago, but it's kind of taken a bit of a nosedive, so I'm hoping it picks up in the next patch.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the new patch on Tuesday in a bit, but I certainly agree with you, and it's reassuring to see in the latest patch notes that they are going to be rolling back to make some improvements in the netcode again. Obviously it's a very difficult thing when things are working quite well, and then obviously your new and improved version is actually a step backwards in some respects. What about matchmaking? Do you think that needs to be... Obviously it's a big issue on the forums at the minute. Lots of people making comments, they want to see matchmaking. It's very, very hard for the pickup groups to get a good match, or certainly if you believe the number of forum posts about it. Do you think they really need to prioritise that, or do you think that's much ado about nothing?
Absolutely. It needs a lobby system just for so many reasons. Just if you want to play with 15 other people specifically, if you want to have a very specific group of people playing, that a lobby system is a perfect solution. It solves league play, it solves newbie rooms. Newbies can get together and play with other new players with trial mechs. A lobby system, I've never heard of a game that got in trouble for having a lobby system. I've never understood if that could be a detriment to players. And it seems like something that really is a vital component that's completely missing from the game at the moment.
Especially considering the fact that Mechwarrior Online is not Call of Duty, it's not Battlefield. It's a much more advanced and more detailed game that you really just can't jump into. Again, going back to the lack of tutorial videos, you don't know the pluses and minuses of certain weapons or mechs or builds, so you start throwing all these people into a match with trial mechs and throw them against, even just a half-assed organized team. The organized team's just going to, wiping across the field one way or the other.
Yeah, and it's definitely not helpful. The lobby system would help a lot for competitive play, but think about if you just found this new game, Mechwarrior Online, you come into play, how are you going to find people to play with right now? There is no general chat system. There is no way to talk to people within game besides text, and the Battlefield's too hectic to use text. And, you have to find the C3 thing, but you have to be with a specific group for that. If you don't go to the forums and specifically seek out people you're going to be alone the entire time, and you're going to run against all these organized groups, and you're just not going to have fun. You're going to end up leaving. That's just all there is to it.
I mean, to my mind, I instantly think back to League of Legends. I don't know how much you guys have perhaps played that, but that, to me, stands out as a pretty good system of doing a free-to-play game. And even then, it's still very, very hard for new players. There's still a lot of things to learn, and it can be very, very difficult for new players. Are there any other sort of games that you can think of that you think PGI should really look at as perhaps modelling their system on?
Well, it's obvious they've taken a hard look at World of Tanks right now. I mean, that's pretty blatantly obvious. And for what it works, World of Tanks okay. They could take a few ideas from it, but overall, I think they just need to start with, like Protection said, the basics of having a lobby, and go from there. I can't really think of a specific game because each one is suited to its own needs.
Well, and then like the idea that they met, I don't know how many patches ago or whatever, but the idea of doing the like a player point system, and that kind of balances out. That way, you've got teams of people that you have a collective score of 1,000 points on this team. You have a collective score on 1,000 points on that team, and theoretically, the two teams are going to be evenly matched. That way, you don't get pug stomps constantly. You actually will have. I mean, it might mean that you're sitting in Matchmaker longer, waiting to find a game. But honestly, I mean, after a while of pug stomping, I mean, not to sound arrogant or anything, but it really does kind of start. You kind of start getting bored almost, and having done a few pugs myself, it gets really frustrating when you just run across pre-made after pre-made after pre-made, and you're just getting stomped to the ground without getting off so much as a single salvo of LRMs.
So I take it you then don't feel that the C3 system they implemented has made a great deal of difference?
Part of the problem was the way that Part of the problem was that they implemented it in a way that was rather intrusive. It popped up every time you formed a group, and a lot of players were just instinctively turned off by that, and they want nothing to do with C3 now.
Yeah, I mean, you have to use it basically while you're forming a specific group. Well, if you're doing that, why not just use TeamSpeak or something else? Now, if they offered that sort of system built into the game so you could use that voice on your team for every game you play, even in the random battles, and everyone had that basically on by default, they could turn it off if they don't want to listen to it. I mean, that would be a whole lot more effective. Yes, you're going to get your standard, people either abusing the mic or they're just annoying or something on there, but that just comes with the territory.
But you can easily add in, mute so-and-so or whatever to take care of, mic spammers.
I mean, yeah, a lot of games have already implemented that, and, systems like Xbox Live are a very good example. You can, they all have built-in VoIP. You can all mute players, particularly offensive players, and there are, or should be, systems to report repeatedly offensive players. So, yeah, I'm certainly with you guys on that. I think there are better ways to implement an integrated voice over internet system. Now, aside from obviously the things that they should be prioritising, the things that perhaps they need to start looking at, are there any of the unreleased features that you're particularly looking forward to? Any new mechs that that are coming up that you're really keen on seeing, or any of the new combat modes that they've slated to release in the next couple of months?
I'm definitely looking forward to the Cataphract, or what will probably become to be known as the Gossifract, because jump jets in close combat brawlers are an incredibly underrated asset, and jump jets plus Goss rifles seems like a really nice combo for me. But I think maps are got to be something that need to be prioritized here. Right now the game's got 4 maps. It should hopefully maybe have 6 by the end of the year, and that would be with 1 alternative forest colony. So we are really hoping that there are going to be more maps down the road. It seems like if you're going to be doing community warfare, fighting over the universe across 6 maps, it doesn't quite seem like enough.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that one. I mean, well, yes, I really want my new mechs, but after you play the same maps over and over and again, it really starts to become just, okay, we're going down the 4 line this time because, well, it's the only real effective way, or, I mean, you see the same strategies implemented just about every time on every map, and it starts getting boring after a while.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, you have this thing right now with PGI releasing their stuff. All their models and maps, they're high quality, don't get me wrong. They're have some of the fewest problems with models and maps that I've seen. I mean, of course you're going to have a few problems, but overall it's not, this entire map is broken when it's released. But there comes a time when quantity is its own quality.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. Now, you mentioned community warfare a little bit there. Is that a feature that's going to excite you for the future? Do you think it's going to fit in with the current way that MWO is working?
I'm definitely excited about it, but I'm also hesitant just for the fact that we know so little about the details. We know the very basics, but as, for example, for me as the corp leader, I can't right now even begin thinking about alliances or treaties or anything like that because I just don't know how it's going to work. Are such things going to be viable or what? I don't know. But I'm definitely excited to see how it's going to be implemented and having a go at it.
And there's also the scare of, Helios and I went through World of Tanks Clan Wars, and I mean, that's still fresh in our minds of, okay, we've got to be on every single night, Sunday through Saturday, for 3 hours apiece for practice, and then 15 battles to defend our territory. And it really, as you mentioned earlier, it really does become a second job. I mean, it's fun at first, and then after that first week, then it's, do we really want to keep doing this?
I think the realistic expectation is that they're probably going to copy and paste the World of Tanks model, but if you're a bit more of an optimist, I'm sure we can hope for they're going to get pretty creative with it. They're going to add some stuff, maybe make it more battle-techy, but we'll have to wait and see. Yeah,
and again, you mentioned there about the amount of commitment you have to put in. I mean, certainly, again, games like EVE have this wonderful Galaxy control system, but a lot of guys have to put a lot of work into that, and you could argue that has actually kept EVE's subscriber numbers down. Obviously, it's a subscription game, not free to play, but, is that a possibility for MWO if they poorly implement this?
Well, EVE has always been marketed as the game where it's for the hardcore players, and CCP has always said that they will not make the game any easier. If anything, they keep making the game harder. But for a free-to-play game, World of Tanks, Mechwarrior Online, you've got to make it so that the average gamer can enjoy every aspect, or just about every aspect of the game, without ruining it for the hardcore players. I love doing the competitive stuff, but again, I don't want to spend every 3 hours of every single night just defending my territory, and if I don't show up one night, oh, well, you've lost everything you've worked for the past, 3 months. Try again later.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a very, very difficult balance for them to try and strike up there. And it's going to have a lot of design challenges, but at the same time, I'm really excited for it. It's certainly one of the things, personally, I was really excited for in MWO. Now, I have to say, one question I do have for you guys is, potentially, there's a clan invasion somewhere over the horizon, perhaps summer next year or so. How do you think that's going to fit in?
Well, honestly, after seeing, first of all, what they've done with the double heatsinks coming next patch, I know we're going to discuss that later, I'm more hopeful about it because they're not going to, stick to the tabletop rules. They're a good base, but for a real-time game, they just have to be tweaked a bit, and showing that they're willing to do that, I think, gives me a lot of confidence in how clan tech and everything's going to fit in. That being said, again, come back to mechs. We're only about halfway through our announced mechs list so far, and at the rate they're going, unless they're secretly working on clan mech models or something, I don't foresee the invasion coming for a long time, even though I know canonically it's happening right now. But as far as in the game, it's a long way down the road, and who knows what state the game will be in at that point.
I kind of hope when they do implement it that we get an asymmetrical kind of fight, like a lot of people were talking about, like an 8-on-5 or a 12-on-10 or something along those lines. And I think that would be much more interesting rather than just nerfing clan tech to the point where it's an even fight. It seems like asymmetrical gameplay, like I'm a big fan of something like Natural Selection 2, where you have sides that have kind of different potential, different ways of doing things, and I feel like that would be an interesting dynamic to the game, but like I said, we'll have to wait and see.
And of course that would work in with the lore as well, you know, with the way that the clans run.
Well,
absolutely.
The other thing is, I mean, again, using World of Tanks as an example, their balancing system is based on, you know, they almost have kind of a weight value for a specific vehicle. And so that's how they kind of balance it out. And if they took clan tech and say, okay, well, you know, you take a Timberwolf, aka Mad Cat, and it's worth the value of X. And then you take an Atlas, which is worth another value of Y, and then you build a team using those X and Y values, and you put it all together, and that's how you balance out your team. But then you also have to maybe throw in player skill. I mean, going back to the whole matchmaking discussion, I mean, there's so many ways they can do it, and it's just one of those, will they pick the right way, or the best way to do it?
Yeah, it's a very complicated system, but I think that's what a lot of us like about Mechwarrior Online is the fact that me and my Jenner, I see that enemy Atlas, you know, I don't instantly think, oh, well, I can't win, I might as well give up. Depending on player skills, I could take it down, Light versus Assault, or he could blow me away quite easily. And I think that's what we like about it, so trying to balance both player skills and clan tech, different mechs and everything, it's a very complicated system you're trying to fit with.
And I have to say, you know, that's probably one thing that PGI has done better than people expected, is that balance that, yes, a light mech or a medium mech can, depending on player skill, take out an Atlas with not all that much trouble, provided they built it right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Like, it was just the other night, me and another friend, we were in heavily damaged Jenners against two fresh Atlases, and we took one down before they finally managed to get us. So, I mean, it comes down to both player skill, player coordination, and how you build your mech, yes, but every mech has a hole somewhere. There is no perfect mech, and it's all about exploiting it, and that's what makes the game so fun.
Okay, just while we're talking about MWO and PGI, I'm going to move on to the competitive play in a second, but do you have one particular design idea or message for PGI?
Basically, maps and models. I mean, that was maps and models. I mean, we realize, you know, it takes a long time, and unfortunately, we just haven't. I mean, we really haven't been seeing much of either being released. I mean, it took how long for us to get the Cicada?
Yeah.
And I mean, and it was supposed to be released a month ago or so. So it's one of those. I mean, that's really what we really look for. And as far as a solution to that, I really don't have anything to offer, unfortunately.
Well, one of the things is I would really like to see them empower the community more. Again, I'm a PC gamer. I like to see an empowered community, a community that has access to tools to help build the game better themselves. I would love to see PGI hand over some of the map-making tools to some of the guys in the community. You'd have lots more maps in a small amount of time, I suspect, if they could figure out the interface and the tools and how to use it. And I don't see why that would be such a bad thing. I understand it's an MMO and PGI is going to have the final word on the maps, but I don't think that would be the wrong way to go about it.
Yeah, and one thing that I sort of thought of, it may work, may not kind of idea is, I mean, look at the mechs we have both in-game right now and announced, and, you know, it's not very many to begin with. Again, we talk about Clan Invasion, it's supposedly not too far ahead, and even looking at that, there's a lot of, you know, very famous Inner Sphere mechs that aren't announced yet. I mean, where's our Zeus? Where's our Thug? You know, of course, people want to see the unseen or reseen, you know, with the Warhammer and whatnot. But maybe it would actually be beneficial as far as the in-game timeline. You know, roll it back a year, make it 3048 instead of 3049. That gives more time to get our Inner Sphere mechs in and everything balanced and polished before we have to worry about the clans.
And actually try out community warfare before we have 12 new factions coming in.
No, and I agree with you on those points. I think very much it would perhaps be a good idea to roll back the timeline a little bit. I mean, at this stage, the timeline doesn't mean a great deal. We're still in, you know, only just in open beta. Do we need to stick to that timeline at the minute?
Yeah, and I think the timeline was enacted when they had their original schedule, you know, open beta back at the end of summer and stuff. They would have a lot more mechs out, and they've realized, you know, they're kind of, not necessarily wall, but things have slowed down slower than their expectations, and I think they should maybe adjust to accommodate that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and certainly a message that PGI should perhaps bear in mind. Now, just the last bit on the game, and we mentioned it earlier, the latest patch is going to hit on Tuesday. Have you had a chance to read the patch notes? Yeah.
Yes, we have.
I know you were hurriedly trying to find them before we started. Anything on there that you're particularly keen to see? Do you think that the latest implementations are significantly going to change the gameplay any?
The biggest thing I've seen is that Phase 1 will be releasing, and I think that's going to address one of the big issues for Pug Stomps, is that you're now going to have only 4-man pre-made teams, and that's really going to help balance things out, where you may have a 4-man pre-made team on each side now, where you may have 2 pre-made teams on each team or whatever, but it's going to balance things out, so it's going to be a little bit more of a strategic challenge to pull out an easy victory as opposed to what it is now, where, you know, well, everybody just kind of loads up, you've got your very coordinated team versus, well, a bunch of people that aren't even talking to each other.
I'm a little more skeptical than happy, Spawn, on that. I think it might be a bit of a band-aid, it might alleviate things a little bit, but I think you're probably going to see a lot of the exact same complaints come out. I don't think it's a bad idea if there's no way to get a lobby system in the game, if there's no way to get a proper matchmaker in the game yet, but I don't think it's going to be the fix-all of.
Yeah, it's not going to be a complete fix, but I think it will help because now you're a 4-man team. You don't know if the other 4 are grouped or not. It would be nice to have some sort of indication even for the pickup gamers so they can look and be wary, oh, this team is coordinated, because one time I did randomly drop against actually my own court, and I saw them, and the entire team was coordinated. And so I told the team I was on, hey, look out, I know these guys, they're a pre-made group. And just knowing that caused a lot more coordination. Did we still get stomped? Yes, we were trying to coordinate over text. But they were more eager to work together knowing they were going up against that. So maybe some indication that you're going up against pre-made groups would help. But I'm also looking forward to the double heatsink fix. Again, as I mentioned before, the fact that they're not sticking directly to tabletop rules and are willing to tweak that value on something like that for the sake of the game, I think speaks volumes. It may not be perfect the first try, but we'll get there.
Now, you mentioned the heat sinks there. There's actually been quite a few complaint threads up on the forums about the heat sinks and the fact they're going to be much more efficient for the lighter mechs and the medium mechs than they are for assaults. Do you think those concerns, those complaints are valid, or do you think this is just people freaking out over nothing?
Well, they're valid, but at the same time, as far as tabletop and stuff, for the Inner Sphere version of double heat sinks, that's sort of how it always was. Steel ferrofibrous, same thing. Yes, they can help on certain assault builds, like an awesome maybe, but overall they're for saving tonnage on lights who need to squeeze every single little bit of tonnage they can get out. An assault, it doesn't have the crit space for double heat sinks. The only bonus it really gets is when the ones that are in the engines. For the most part, I mean, you can't put them in the legs, you can only put so many in the torsos where most of your weapons are. So, I mean, they're valid complaints, but I just think that's how the system's meant to be.
I like the idea of player choices being meaningful. I don't think Endosteel should be just basically a flat upgrade as far as gameplay goes. I would like to see a little more tweaking so that there's some trade-offs with putting double heatsinks in. There's some disadvantages. Putting Endosteel in, there might be, maybe your systems are easier to crit out. Something like that. I like more balance. I want the decisions that players have to make about customizing their mech meaningful and different, and I want there to create variety through that. I don't want them to be flat linear upgrades. Oh, if you've got 14 crits open, put Endosteel on because you save tonnage. It's flat, and I also don't like cost as a balancing system either. That's a very lazy way to do balance.
Yeah, much like XL engines back in closed beta. I mean, before they made them easier to crit and everything, I mean, it was, oh, you have the money, buy an XL engine. It's cheaper, or I mean, it's a little bit more expensive, but it's lighter. It takes up 3 crit slots in each side torso. I mean, unless you're really, needing those crit slots, there's no reason not to put one on every mech that you own. And then they, implemented, oh, well, you get critted in that, or, I mean, basically punch the side torso while you die. And that really kind of balanced out, and along with protection on that, where they really do need to have some kind of balancing factor.
Yeah, and I have to say, you make a very, very good point there as well, that the way the XL engines changed was a fantastic change to the system, because it created genuine player choice, which I don't think we had previously within the closed beta. It was very much, as you say, a straight upgrade system.
Yeah, but the problem is exactly. You're going to have the... Go ahead, Patrick.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that every kind of decision that a player should make about whether he puts, Endosteel or regular structure on, there should be an advantage and a disadvantage to both, rather than, well, this one's just better if you have the room for it.
Yeah, and, I mean, I understand where you're coming from. It's going to be hard to try to do such a thing, considering in tabletop, not only are you saving weight, those take up crit rolls and protect your core components as well. Maybe if they do the matchmaking such as Happy suggested about giving the value to a specific mech, will take its loadout into account. Endosteel is better, so, your Jenner with Endosteel, okay, we're going to match you against a Hunchback that doesn't have Endosteel because you're just made better than him.
That's a very interesting idea. I don't know how feasible, or not how feasible, but how difficult that would be to code, but it's certainly an idea that perhaps should be looked at. I think definitely the straight-up assault versus assault style of matchmaking is not really a valid way of doing things at the minute.
Well, I mean, you look at, just tabletop, you have mech battle values, and you generate that battle value based on the chassis, the weight, the equipment mounted on it, the pilot, and you take all those things and combine them into one. That gives you your battle value. So you might have an assault that stripped down, has practically nothing on it, low pilot score, whatever, and then you have a heavy, or even maybe a medium that's completely just decked out to the core with the best equipment possible available. And you throw the two together and, oh, hey, look, they're really close, if not evenly matched.
Yeah, that is something they could probably definitely look into. I don't know if they have already, is look at the current battle value algorithm that's being used. Obviously, it needs tweaking. There's probably going to be problems with just matchmaking. They'll have to, have some sort of air threshold they'll allow and say this is a good enough match. But, hey, maybe it's worth looking forward to. Playing tabletop, I can tell you that battle value is a pretty darn good equalizer. There's a few things they take into account that are a bit over top. Like, I know Happy is very ticked off about his assaults with jump jets being worth so much more than, the standard assault. But at the same time, it's a good base to start with. Start tweaking values, see what you can come up with.
Okay, what about some of the other stuff coming in the patch then? Like, reportedly we've got ECM coming and Artemis as well. What about these things?
I think Artemis is probably going to increase the number of LRM complaints, which is kind of a shame because LRMs haven't been all that successful of a weapon in competitive play, but what they're really good for is killing pugs that tend to separate from the group. Without that coordination that, oh, hey, these guys have got lots of LRMs, that one player on your team that doesn't have the voice communication, doesn't know, wanders out in the open, gets nuked. But if everybody on your team's aware, LRMs are pretty, I'm not going to say easy to deal with, but it's not anywhere near the challenge that pugs are facing with them. So it's a trade-off. They seem to be a very good pug-killing weapon, but they seem to be a little underpowered in competitive play, so it's hard to say, and boosting LRMs, it's going to cause some complaints for sure.
Yeah, I mean, right now, especially considering the current trial builds, 3 of them have LRMs on them, so there's a lot of LRMs flying out there right now. And granted, they won't have the Artemis stuck in unless the trial mech specifically has it, but just the sheer volume of LRMs flying out there, I think maybe the standard gamer is not getting a fair look at some of the weapon balance, considering LRMs and other stuff.
No, I think that's pretty fair points, you know. Now, there's a couple of other things that are coming into the patch as well. Obviously, cockpit damage effects, which is going to be interesting. I'm hopefully we will see some HUD damage when you get headshots. That's something I'd personally quite like to see. One of the other things really coming in is apparently paint jobs. Now, are we going to see any outlandish paint jobs from you guys?
From the Silver guys, definitely. Myself, I've never been a big fan of the bright color schemes. It's just never been one of my things. I've always been the gunmetal gray or an appropriate actual camo scheme. Considering the fact that you won't be able to change your camo scheme before a battle without knowing what the map is, kind of makes it difficult, so expect to see me running around in, battleship gray or something to that extent.
Yeah, there will definitely probably a few people that make an outlandish color, especially considering Paul's comment about, targeting hot pink colored mechs. I may or may not just make a, hot pink Jenner just to mess with people. But overall, I think it's going to be pretty, muted, standard color scheme, people trying out different things, nothing too flashy.
Now, obviously, the paint job, it may seem like a fairly low-scale addition to add into this patch, particularly when we've already discussed how many other things that perhaps need dealing with. But obviously, this is going to be a big way a free-to-play game is going to make money. Do you think that these sorts of customizations are one of the things that PGI should perhaps be looking more at, rather than focusing on making money through perhaps grind, forcing people to grind and having to use the trial mechs,
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of the idea of selling cosmetics as your principal moneymaker. I mean, people love, if they are interested in the game, people love to deck out their mech to be unique, to be their own special snowflake. And I think the more ways you give the player to customize his mech without directly affecting gameplay, I think that's just better for the game, that's better for the community. I mean, the more way you can make your mech yours. Things like laser prisms, so if you don't want to shoot blue lasers, you want to shoot purple lasers. I mean, that seems like a really cool idea, or I'm sure half the ELP would love to be shooting rainbow-colored PPCs.
Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't?
No comment about that protection.
But, because, even with what we have right now, for example, you can name your mech. Well, it's a very unused feature because it's not displayed publicly, and you can't change it afterwards. So, if you're naming your mech, it's only for yourself. You're probably naming it based on your loadout. Well, your loadout changes. So, stuff like camo spec is something to make your mech, this is my mech. Maybe if we were allowed to have our names for our mechs both renamed and displayed in the match come up. Something either to strike fear into the hearts of our enemies or whatever you want it for. That feeling of customization, definitely, it helps you immerse into the game and it makes it a more enjoyable experience.
But you also have to make sure it's implemented in the correct way. You want it to be enough so that you're not selling these things for a quarter, but you don't want to be making the people that are a little more
Spaceport?
More of a time. Yeah, Spaceport. Yeah, we'll go with Spaceport. they're scared out by the concept of, well, I mean, do I really want to drop $5 just so I can get a camo scheme for my mech or whatever? And you definitely don't want to go with the CCP's idea for EVE Online. And, oh, hey, we're going to charge you what, $90 for a monocle. Well, what does it do? It's a monocle. It's displayed on your avatar and does nothing.
Now, obviously, being British, I very much wanted that monocle. I obsessed over pictures of that monocle. But yeah, $90 was just far too much a price to pay for a cosmetic item. Now, again, I know I mentioned League of Legends earlier, but I'm a big fan of League of Legends. I don't play it as much as I used to, but I'm a big fan in the way that Riot has done things, and particularly with their free-to-play model. And again, skins, I would say Riot probably makes the second most amount of money from skins. The first amount would probably be things like XP boosts and things like that. But the skins, and even the slightly more expensive skins, have custom animations on. And that's certainly something obviously there's not really a great many ways you can customize a mech, although a Dancing Atlas would be fairly cool. So I don't know. That's something I'd certainly like to see in the game.
I would definitely love to have written on the side of the arms of my Atlas, this way to Tharkad, or something to that extent. I mean, it would definitely. And there's so many little things you can do. I mean, just custom camo schemes, decals. I mean, the sky is literally the limit.
Yeah, you could literally even change parts of mechs, like you can give the Atlas maybe different shoulder pads, or give the Jenner some tail fins. It doesn't really need to change the overall hitboxes, it just needs to be a cosmetic, oh cool, my Jenner's got these little wings on it.
Or you could even give the Atlas a monocle.
And top hat. I demand a top hat.
And top hat, yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, just look at Team Fortress 2. Yeah, it did get crazy at the end. They started adding all these different weapon stuff in, but it went from a game you had to buy to free-to-play, basically, primarily just because they were selling so many cosmetic items. People have to have their hats. I don't know why, personally, it's not that big of a deal for me, but people love their hats.
Again, it goes back to that making your mech that special snowflake. Again, I play Team Fortress 2, and I have a wide variety of hats. I think they're important. I have no idea why I think they're important. But as far as I'm concerned, my kill-death ratio improves dramatically when I'm wearing my special edition Deus Ex sunglasses or some other ridiculous cosmetic edition that serves no real purpose.
The big thing that I always have against cosmetic stuff is the fact that I want it to be something that I can visually see. I mean, yes, a custom camo scheme for my mech is awesome, but I can't see my mech. So it really kind of almost loses some of that aspect. I mean, World of Tanks have the custom camo schemes, but you can at least get into third-person mode and be like, wow, my tank looks so awesome. It's absolutely terrible, but it looks awesome.
But again, that's another rather contentious issue amongst the community at the minute, is third-person view, and how would that fit in? I mean, for my money, third-person in MWO would be a bit of a deal-breaker, personally. What about you guys?
I like the idea of constrained first-person, especially because it really would drop the disadvantages of certain mechs. I mean, I'm an Atlas pilot myself, and so I don't know how many times that, it'd be nice to be able to jump out in the third person to see, okay, where's that Generat that's running around behind me trying to, punch through my rear armor. And you do that, and, oh, well, you effectively destroy the advantages that, lights and mediums have. And it also makes, city fighting a lot easier because you can effectively look around corners to an extent.
I think there's just a normal problem. This is exactly why I like the first person, is that actually you can look around a corner and you actually have to take the risk and just sort of pump. I'm kind of just, I have no there in the third person. If there's any kind of a third person, I'd probably be from a spectator view. I think that'd be cool, especially as like an e-sport. But
Protection, I'm losing you ever so slightly on the Skype chat there. Good old Skype. Hopefully that will sort itself out in a minute, and we'll see how it goes. If it doesn't, I may have to drop you and call you back again.
As a translation from what he was saying, basically it's more or less agreeing with what I was saying, but it would be nice to see like a third-person spectator view implemented. That way, if MWO ever did make it to a level of, say, an esport or something like that, that you can now have an effective viewing angles. You're not limited to watching from the first-person perspective. You can actually see what's actually going around. I mean, all of a sudden, a mech dies. Well, what was shooting him from where or in what direction? But as far as being a critical in-game thing for the players, no, I really do think it should remain first-person. I mean,
yeah, I agree. I mean, I prefer first-person in mechs above all else. One thing I did like was, you take a look back at Mechwarrior 2, they had, the external camera. And, when you went in that, yes, you saw behind your mech, you got to see, ooh, look how awesome my Timberwolf is. I can count the polygons, but, you had no HUD. You didn't have your targeting reticule. You had nothing. It was primarily for looks. Yes, you could gain a little extra information out of that, I guess, but you didn't have your radar. You didn't have nothing. It was primarily just to look at your mech and make it look cool. And there are quite a few times rolling through River City, I was like, man, I wish I could, actually see my mech, strolling through this town right now.
The only thing I would like to see is, because I was playing one of my flight sims the other day and looking through the cockpit, I realized I have rear view mirrors on my jet. Why do I not have rear view mirrors for my Atlas yet? This would solve so many issues. I mean, balancing-wise, yes, it would make an Atlas a little bit, make sneaking up on an Atlas a little bit harder, but at the same time, God, it's so frustrating.
Now, you did touch on something there, and it's going to bring us nicely into the next part of this, which is the competitive play, and particularly the esports. And you mentioned about having a spectator camera. Now, I know certainly amongst the Steel Jaguars and our team, we're very big on this idea that MWO has potential as an esport. What do you guys think on the subject?
I think it really does. I think the first thing you've got to get over is first stigma. First-person games generally don't do very well at esports because generally you don't want to watch a guy clicking heads. It doesn't seem like that interesting to people, so I think really need a spectator. There's this tactical level to Mechwarrior. There's this strategy of player movement's very important. And at first perspective, I see that this game probably looks quite good. Doesn't have that weird sort of sidestep player motion that in a lot of first-person shooters it looks just irregular. And it'd be a little more interesting anyway than most FPAs.
Yeah, I think that's certainly a bit of an issue there. Is you can see the big esport game at the minute are games like League of Legends and StarCraft, where they have a very good top-down view. They've integrated very, very nicely with esports in mind from the start with their spectators. Not so much League of Legends, that came later, but as soon as they implemented a good spectator view, it exploded as an esport. And of course, a lot of the FPS games just don't have that kind of spectator view support, which I suppose limits their ability as an esport or enjoyable to watch esport.
Yeah, definitely. Take a look at the final matches that were aired for the RunHotorDie Tournament. You take a look at the first one. First of all, you're viewing from a Jenner, so it's a little bit spazzy to begin with. No offense to him, that's how you have to be as a Jenner, but it's not really good for view. And when you look at the second match, I mean, what did you see the entire time? Well, you saw a Jenner defending the base, and you had to keep track of kills and stuff based off of just the announcements. What you didn't see was one of our team members, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, I believe he was a leg catapult, and he took down 3 mechs. That would have been awesome footage, but you couldn't see it, because there's no spectator view. Instead, here's a Jenner shooting something that's trying to capture the base.
And the things that they did a study on StarCraft, Lego Legends, Dota, what made them interesting esports. And kind of had the highest excitement when one team was doing something that the other team wasn't aware of. And that's the advantage you can't get in Mechwarrior. When somebody was in StarCraft was building banelings, the other guy had an arc that was very vulnerable to banelings and didn't know it, that was when the audience recorded the highest excitement levels. And this is something you get in Mechwarrior Online. But you need an interface that can show teams have what their damage is, what loadouts do, and what they're doing from a much further perspective rather than just crammed into somebody's cockpit.
Yeah, now, one of the things that has kind of been exciting me, we're talking about, obviously, they're building this level of excitement up with viewers, with the spectator support. Have any of you guys seen some of the Firefall footage that is being touted about for their esports, basically?
I can't say I have. I had a Firefall beta invitation, but unfortunately for them, I'm sorry, but my Mechwarrior online beta invitation came at about the same time, and well, that was the end of that.
I am exactly the same, I must admit, but I have been following some of the announcements they've made. Now, one of the things that they've done right from the start is to build this idea of esports. And they've actually built so that within their arenas, within their tournaments, battlefields, spectators have got control over a completely free roaming camera. And there's also preset cameras, almost as if, fixed cameras within a battle arena system. So you can switch to the action, you can switch to cameras, you can pan your own camera about, and the whole idea is to make it easier for shoutcasters, basically. And not just professional shoutcasters either. It's designed with the guy on YouTube who wants to get into shoutcasting. He's got the tools at his command to do it. Do you think that's something that MWO could benefit from?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, it could even benefit just from a team perspective, having that viewing angle. We just lost a match. Okay, what went wrong? What weakness of ours did they exploit? You look at the footage. Oh, okay, this is what they did. So now we got to make sure that doesn't happen in the future. It makes the teams better. It makes the people watching it better, and overall, just makes a better game.
Yeah, I have to say, I think I agree with you. Now, we're talking about competitive play here, and you mentioned the RunHotorDie tournament, and obviously the video footage of that, the finals you had with Chaos Legion, very, very kindly shoutcasted by No Guts, No Galaxy. Tell us a little bit about your experience with the RunHotorDie tournament.
Well, the tournament was a fantastic experience, and of course, we thank Mechwarrior for hosting it, putting on that was actually a lot of effort on your guys' part, and we do appreciate it. And yeah, it was a very exciting, and a very fun tournament. It was kind of the first real foray at Mechwarrior, and then kind of real competitive play. And what was really interesting was seeing all the different kind of strategies the team employed. Some teams were very aggressive, some teams were very defensive and some teams kind of played this intermittent game. Some teams were snipers, some teams were ballers, some teams like missiles, some teams like drives. To get a lot of dynamic fun coming a collision to see where competitive play stands.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Mephos and Glory did an awful lot of work putting into that tournament. Did you find it a serious challenge trying to get the matches in? We've talked about matchmaking already. Was that a significant problem with you while you were trying to get the drops in?
At our first couple games, we probably missed about 50% of the drops or more. After a couple of weeks of sinking drops, we pretty much got used to it and we got it down. It was definitely inconvenient, and once again, the game benefited immensely from all the system, but by the end, we had sinking drops much 95% of the time done.
Alright, Protection, I'm going to drop you from the call a sec and try and get you back, because your sound dropping keeps dropping out. So guys, we're going to just take 2 minutes while we try and fix a technical problem. Hopefully we get this squared away soon enough.
Dang it, Protection.
I knew we shouldn't trust the Canadian.
1 second, I coming in through now.
You're really spreading
Still breaking.
protection.
Okay.
Stop downloading all those dirty files. We know what you're really doing.
But just to translate what he did say.
Yeah, it was a bit rough at first, but people got used to it. They synced really well at the end. I think the very last match with Chaos had a few difficulties, but overall it was almost every single time that they managed to get the match in.
And my bad.
Not really.
Still bad.
Oh, it's alright. If you can't hear me, just continue without me. It's not that big of a deal.
No,
Yeah,
it's jumbled.
Yeah. I think it might be his end, honestly.
Alright.
Yep, still bad.
Still bad? Alright.
Yep.
Don't worry about me then.
Oh well, we tried. Protection, you can just listen then.
Alright guys, we're back. Sorry about that. We're still having a couple of technical issues with protection and his sound quality. I do apologise, but we will endeavour to fix that as best as we can. Hopefully Skype will sort itself out very shortly, he says. Now obviously you guys won the tournament. How did that go for you? Was that a significant challenge that you came? Was it? Did you find it a big boost to your recruitment afterwards? And how much community support did you get in your effort to win the championship?
Oh, the applicants. We're drowning in applicants. But, it was definitely a huge challenge because before the tournament, we had never actually played competitively as a group. And I can tell you right now, there were many people on the team that were cursing my name because I heavily enforced the NDA, even in the internal forums. So they had a hard time coordinating with each other to get in practices and make plans and everything. So it was definitely a challenge, and not even just from that, but all the teams we faced in it, really top-notch, excellent pilots, but even better people.
And the fact that afterwards, I mean, Helios and I just the one day realized, I mean, we just kind of stepped back and realized, I mean, we were expecting, none of this. I mean, we were expecting, we'll just be this little group kind of off to the side that, everybody will just kind of poke fun at from time to time. We'll win a couple of matches. I mean, when we won this, I mean, when we made it past the first round, I mean, we were just like, oh my god, hey, we've made it past the first round. This is awesome. And we won round 2, and then round 3, and then finally, we at the end, we were all. I think just about everybody was sitting on the public server listening as the battle went on. And at the end, when it was, we won. It was just, I mean, just this general just shock of just holy shit. I mean, we did this. We somehow we pulled it off.
Yeah, and again, they were very top-notch competitors. I mean, look at Chaos. They hadn't lost a match until the final round. I mean, they were excellent, and if we had a rematch, who knows, they'd probably have I'd say maybe around a 50-50 chance of winning. I mean, it's a very good team. It's, that's just how Mechwarrior is. Sometimes it comes down to luck every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, Chaos are certainly renowned as being one of the best competitive teams out there. And I have to say the odds were probably very heavily weighted against you guys. I think there were probably quite a few detractors who were surprised you made it that far. And I would hope that is an emphasis to anyone watching about the merits of the competitive side. That provided you've got your strategy going, you can do it. It's not just for these elite gamers, and certainly within mecha gaming, I don't think it's down to these Twitch players. It's very different from that sort of FPS community in a sense.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we have a lot of excellent pilots. Mav and Window are excellent geners, for example. Some of the best I've seen. Protection was an excellent leader during all of it, but it does come down to a lot of team coordination. I mean, look at us. We came in there, no one had really heard of us. They see, what is this, a pony group? Oh man, these are just a bunch of, know-nothings. They're making fun of our beloved Battletech and everything. They ignore the fact that we've been in Battletech for a long time, most of us enjoying it. And we came in there, we actually got, we were a late addition because another team couldn't make it. And, we come out of nowhere and win it, and suddenly, we went from most corps and stuff, they didn't want nothing to do with us. It's that pony group, push them off to the side. Now we have a lot of contacts, a lot of good friends based just from that competition alone. And the renown you get is a big boost to, hey, people want to talk to us now. And people want to talk to the other competitors. They see what they're doing. They see they're a good, serious bunch, and they're worth playing with.
Is this like what it's supposed to be like to be popular in high school?
I was never that popular, I couldn't tell you. So obviously with that, and you said the strength of that has boosted your recruitment levels and your contact. How has that affected you as a team with your drive towards competitive play? I mean, obviously your priority is creating that community and being a fun group to play with. Do you maintain now a core competitive group to enter those sorts of competitions? Is it something you really want to get into more?
Well, I'd say definitely thanks to the competition, we do have a lot more people that are interested in it. I mean, towards the end, I know Protection was having problems. We have all these people want to play, and they're all really good, but who do we pick to come in? We can only have 8, and we got 20 people off to the side that we have to say, oh, sorry, no, but we have to go with this guy for this match. And as far as the ELP as a community, I think it comes back to one of the big things, the founding philosophies I had with it was equality. Every single person, from me as the commanding officer to the applicant we accepted yesterday, has equal say in the future. So more applicants and more people that want to...
Nope.
I think Eddie's just putting on now.
Oh, we're full of technical problems this evening. Hi, Lee, is you still there?
I am.
Yeah.
Did you not get any of that?
Yes, I got. You were just clipped off a little bit at the end. That's not a problem. Not a problem. Now, I have to say, a little bit of team boosting on our side with Still Jaguars. I think, after the back of the Run Hot or Die tournament, we've started to see a couple more community-run tournaments coming up. I think that the next big one coming up is the Trial by Fire. Is that something you guys are participating in?
Not really as a group. Most of the people out of the whole trial mech idea is interesting. They don't seem like they're really interested overall. Right now, they're mainly looking forward to getting the matchmaking phase 2 and everything in so that we can continue the Run Hot or Die season.
Now, of course, you just mentioned the Run Hot or Die season. You are in the North American division for Run Hot or Die Season 1. Do you know who your future matchups are?
Both of our teams, I believe, have Dark Sabers next, which we face first in the tournament as well, so it's a little interesting how that's going to work out.
Now, do you think you're still going to be able to keep your competitive edge? Obviously, a lot of things have changed with all the various patches since the tournament that we held. You know, do you think that you're going to have to change your tactics? Have you already had to change your tactics significantly since then?
Really, the thing is that we just have to roll with the ball. I mean, if we take a loss, then so be it. I mean, we just keep going. I mean, we change where we need to, but a lot of times, I mean, you don't realize, you know, that you have to change something until you've already gotten hit with it. I mean, there were times that, you know, we weren't expecting stuff in the in the tournament until, hey, oh God, they're throwing this at us. Okay, everybody, we'll make it up as we go. Scrap the idea we had before. We'll do it live.
Now, if there was someone, a new player to MWO, who had been looking to get into the competitive scene, or perhaps not even that, hadn't considered the competitive scene, what would you say to them?
Read up on the forums a lot. When it comes to any sort of competitive, obviously you need to know the ins and outs of every single weapon. Know what you're good at, try out and stuff, but the biggest thing out of everything is join a group. Join a group that you think you're going to have fun with, even if you're looking for serious competitive play. I mean, maybe some people do prefer, you know, they want a big competitive group, even if they're not really having fun with them. They don't care because they're in competitive, but you really got to, I think, get in a group you enjoy playing with before you can even think about doing anything else. But that's just my personal experience.
I mean, that's fairly sound advice there, you know. Now, obviously, you did quite a lot of your tactics on the fly there. Did you find that you were poring over mech builds? Were you working very hard for mech efficiency? You know, we had obviously a lot of optimized builds. We saw a lot of the 9 small laser swaybacks. Was that something you guys really worked for, or were you much happier to just go with the flow and people's individual choices?
No, I put a lot of pressure on people to run the cookie cutters, things like the gospels, the 6 laser check, the 9 laser sway back when it was fast, although you'd see because of the nerf. But yeah, no, I put pressure on people to run very specific builds, and I felt a little bit bad about it. I mean, everyone makes the pilot rankings and Centurions, and the bad saying no, you're helping in a Hanji, but it just the way that got trends. You want to be the guy that shows up 1, 2 few gosses and gosh. But
yeah, and in case you didn't catch that, translate that, it was very much the so-called cookie cutter builds, especially initially because there were the tried and true stuff, and a lot of it was taking advantage of stuff like, hey, the Gauss is very powerful. Frankly, I still think it's too powerful, but you have to take advantage of that when it comes to competitive play. You take every single advantage you can get. That being said, towards the end, I know there were a few builds that tried out and turned out, hey, these actually, at least with this pilot, work just as good, if not better, than the cookie cutter build. Let's try that.
No,
and that's always something you're always going to run into is getting that mix of what you know is going to work and what is going to work for each individual person, and finding that balance is really the hardest part when you're building that team.
No, and that's another really good point that you guys have made there. It's the mech customization, you know, and there are a lot of people now pushing towards those cookie cutter builds. I certainly see a lot more Gorzaports on the field, less so with the swaybacks because of the engine nerf, but definitely the Gorzaports. Do you think that is something that could potentially ruin the game? You know, a lot of previous MMOs, some people found that because, you know, there were those people, theory crafters basically, that said, hey, this is the only way to play your class or you know, play this game. And it killed some of the enjoyment off for some people. Do you think that's a potential problem for MWO in the future?
I think it definitely is, just for the fact, especially with BattleTech, you know, we discussed earlier the whole light versus assault coming down to player skill. It's big on customization. You play to your strengths. Whether you prefer small lasers up close or medium lasers at a bit far out, you know, it's what you want to do within, of course, the limits of the game and the mech you're using and whatnot. But in the end, I think customization is a key, and PGI should probably look at, you know, we see all these gossip holes. I think that says something, you know, again, personally, about the Gauss. It's obviously, if everyone thinks the best build for a heavy is a catapult with 2 Gauss coming out of a machine gun port, hey, something probably needs to be done here.
The one thing to the end of the day is all balancing, and I mean, I think the goal for me to never have cookie cutters. I don't think that will ever happen. I think the goal is to be that there's so many cookie cutters to choose from. There's a nice variety of different cookie cutter specs, that there's a lot of variety just cookie cutters themselves.
Yeah, I'm one of those people, when people post, like, on our forums, new applicants or whatever, saying, hey, I'm going to get a hunchback. What kind of build do you suggest? And, you know, of course, there's this cookie cutter build of a hunchback. Well, I say, okay, you can try that, but I would suggest use it as a base, tinker a little bit, serve it, you know, to your specializations, and I think people would find a whole lot more better performance if they customized themselves based on their strengths.
Well, and it's like with Eve. I mean, like, one thing I always suggest to people, like, when fitting a ship on Eve, I mean, it's very much a similar thing for Mechwarrior Online is, I mean, start with this basic, maybe with the cookie cutter. And as Taylor was saying, tweak it to what you want. I mean, if you don't want, the faster build, then, you know, drop the engine a little bit. Or drop these these SRMs and buff the engine. I mean, you've got to tweak it to the way that fits you, but also to the point where, you know, you're not running around with a hunchback with 1 PPC and, you know, nothing else, and just a buttload of heat sinks, or, as one person in our group attempted, 4 large pulse lasers.
Hey, but 10 out of 10 for trying new things. Unless you try new things, you never know it works.
Exactly. You don't find new things. You don't find the next cookie cutter until somebody builds it.
Exactly. I mean, heck, take a look at one of our Jenner pilots, Aki. She said, hey, let's put 2 PPCs on a Jenner and see what happens, and she had surprising success at it. Yes, it was running hot. Yes, had to drop a lot of armor, but just the shock factor of, oh, this Jenner has 2 PPCs, I don't want nothing to do with it. You know, to each their own.
Now, obviously, we talked a little bit about the interest you guys have had after winning the tournament. Do any of you guys live stream at the minute?
Of us here, I don't think any of us do. We have a few people that'll do live streaming from time to time, but it's nothing officially sanctioned. It's more just, they just kind of do it anyways. It's just one of those things that they do for all their games. Will we live stream in the future? Who knows? We might not. For me, effort is required, so I probably won't.
Yeah, it's not something we do officially as a court, but, you know, every now and then someone, you know, we're playing games like, oh, by the way, I'm live streaming this. They're like, oh, okay, cool. And, you know, they'll usually have a link somewhere on our forums to their live stream. If, you know, for some reason someone was interested in watching that, you know, feel free.
Now, that's interesting, and obviously a lot more players are starting to live stream since the open beta started, you know. And for me, I'm hoping that a lot more of the competitive teams will start live streaming, because I think it's great to get to see those players in action. And I'm really hoping that we're going to see this lift off. You know, I fervently hope that MWO is going to get a big gaming crowd behind it.
Yeah, and again, that comes also, though, to the matchmaking. Do you really want to watch this group of, you know, do you really want to watch the ELP who won the competitive tournament go out there and stomp 8 uncoordinated people? there is a bit of factor. You get to see how they operate, but honestly, if you looked at us doing that, you'd see there's very little team chat aside from calling out a specific target that looks dangerous, you know, a street cat or a gossip hole or something like that. But, I mean, when we don't have to use our competitive edge, I don't think you get a very good viewing experience.
I mean, it's kind of like watching, you know, a professional sports team playing against, you know, a bunch of, you know, kids in high school or whatever. I mean, honestly, while I would love to see the hilarity, I wouldn't want to watch an American football game, you know, some big NFL team beating up on a bunch of high schoolers. I mean, hilarity would be included, but, you know, when the game is, you know, 173 points to 2, I mean...
Yeah, it starts to lose its appeal a little bit.
Yeah.
But I have to say, a lot of the live streamers that are doing very well at the minute are actually running more of an educational or tutorial style live streams. You know, is that something that perhaps should be encouraged more?
I think it would definitely help. I mean, yes, there is value to that. Even though you see us stomping an unorganized group, you see that, oh, well, you know, this guy, he's running his Atlas, he's using this build, and oh, look at how he, you know, aims his Gauss rifle or how he times his SRMs or something. That could definitely help people. But, again, it also comes down to the people that need the training videos, need the learning tutorials or whatever, that they actually make that effort to go and find it. There's no real good method, at least with the game or PGI right now, of presenting that to a new player and say, hey, check this out. They have to actively search it.
Live streaming's always been kind of one of those things that I've always, you know, never understood the point of it, unless it is some big kind of competitive match. But just general videos for, you know, just recording to put up on YouTube, I mean, tutorial videos, you know, how-tos, stuff like that. That stuff can be good, but you also have to be careful that you're not just spamming it. I mean, we actually don't even have a YouTube channel up yet because, I mean, we really don't have too much content to throw up there. And, I mean, we will have one eventually, yes. But until we have the amount of content, worthwhile content that we want, I mean, there's really just no point. I mean, because otherwise you just start uploading all these videos of, hey, here's us pug stomping. Oh, hey, look, here's us pug stomping again. And now you just got this channel filled with just junk that nobody wants to watch.
So, well, I will look very much forward to your YouTube when you do eventually put it up. I expect lots of pony music videos. I'm stating that out and out now. I know I said I was going to avoid the pony thing, but I expect nothing less from you guys. Now,
there may or may not be a video circulating of us. See, what exactly happened? Protection, something to do with a Atlas against a bunch of Flamer builds. So, yeah, I mean, we'll definitely have the hilarity stuff on there, but there will also be worthwhile content every now and then. You know, the competitive matches we can put up there, you know, scrimmages or whatnot, or even some tutorial videos, you know. It just depends on the quality.
well, moving on slightly from MWO, what about Hawken? Have you guys been paying attention to this? Are you keeping an eye on it? Is it something that interests you?
Honestly, I haven't seen too much of it. I mean, I actually just had to watch some of the videos the other day just to remind myself, what's this game about? Oh, that's right, it's the other game that's releasing. Honestly, just watching the video play, the in-game videos, it really just doesn't look all that appealing to me. I mean, it kind of does, but it's just, I don't know, there's just something about it. It just really doesn't catch my eye. I mean, you've suddenly got the movement controls is one thing that kind of bugged me. That you've got these really slow, lumbering mechs, and then all of a sudden, oh, we've got jump jets and we're flying all over the place. It's like, well, pick one.
Yeah, videos I've seen, it actually reminds me a lot. For some reason, I can't get out of my head. It's basically tribes with robots. I mean, it just really feels like that to me. That whole Twitch gaming feel and everything. It's not something that really appeals to me. It just seems, at least at the front, too simplistic, and that doesn't hold my attention for long.
No, and I have to say, you're not the first person that's made that comparison. You know, it's very much this feeling that it's it's almost a normal FPS under this kind of very, very shallow veneer of mecha gaming. Do you think that's a fair assessment of the game?
I can't say 100% sure because I haven't played it, but from the outside looking in, it sort of looks like that to me.
I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, though. I mean, a lot of people just want a simple, easy to learn, easy to play game that only, that, you know, if you have 1 or 2 hours a week, or probably much of a time commitment. I mean, you've got to build your magic and customize it. There's a lot of details to learn. When you just hop and do pick some weapons and shoot, I think it's probably a great choice.
So,
Yeah, I mean, the simplicity appeal is, I mean, it does have appeal. I mean, Helios and I mean, we'll play through some Mechwarrior Online, and we'll find like, okay, let's load up Battlefield 3, and let's just go, you know, kill people on team deathmatch. I mean, it's chaotic, but it's simple enough. You know, point, click, kill, die, respawn, point, click, kill, rinse and repeat. And sometimes you just need that change, but I mean, but it's just that it's something different, but it's not something I'm going to want to play as, you know, a primary game. It's one of my, you know, side things to take a break from whatever else I'm playing.
so with that in mind, do you think it's close enough with the mecha gaming to actually be a bit of a challenge to MWO, or do you think, and I'm guessing which way your answer is going to swing here, but do you think it's going to be different enough that it's not really going to detract from MWO, particularly with the weight MWO has behind it as the only Mechwarrior game? You know, it's got the franchise behind it and everything else.
Yeah, considering... Go ahead, Lewis.
I think it's almost a bit of a mix. I don't think it's going to be competition for, you know, the hardcore Battletech, Mechwarrior people at all. Not to say they won't play it, but I don't think it's going to suddenly replace Mechwarrior Online. At the same time, the simplicity of it, again, like Javi said, that may be enough to attract your standard person that they see Mechwarrior Online, they play with it a bit, oh, this is too complicated, ooh, Hawken, okay, this is real simple and stuff, I can get into this.
Comparisons can be made one or the other. They're the strong games that right now, so people are making their pretty good.
And also the fact, I mean, again, like you said, it's got Mechwarrior has the franchise behind it. It's got the fan base behind it. Hawken is as far as I know, it's a completely new concept. I mean, it has very little, or doesn't have much of supporting it. I mean, again, I haven't done too much research into it, but I mean, the first thing I thought of when people started comparing it was when Star Trek Online came out, and everybody was just like, "Oh, this is going to kill EVE Online," and it just didn't. I mean, it did. I mean, it was big for the group of people that played it, but it didn't really go too far. And I kind of had the feeling that that's the same thing that's going to happen with Hawken. It'll be big for the select.
I know one thing, but they got a big $1 million investment Chinese firm, so I think they're going to financial backing as well.
I mean, yeah, that's a good point. Hawken has had a lot of investment in it, and again, we talked about the esports scene. I think it's fair to say that Hawken is very much gunning for that esports spot, and they're using a lot of their investment into that sort of thing, you know, and making it a viable esport. I don't know, I mean, for my money, I would say it seems very much like, as Helios said, it's kind of like Tribes or Team Fortress 2, just in mechs. And it doesn't have the same weight and feel behind it. You know, it doesn't seem as much like mech simulation.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And again, when it comes to esports, I guess it's a bit hit or miss. A big thing is popularity. Hawken's sort of gaining it. It was gaining a lot of publicity. It's got the backing. Mechwarrior Online, it's, as far as I know, I mean, there's more people than I expected, and there's still people coming in daily, of course. They're checking out the latest free-to-play, but it's not out there as much as other games. It doesn't have that popularity it kind of needs to get its foothold. The fan base it has is hardcore, dedicated. They really enjoy it. They're not going away anytime soon, but it also needs to expand before it can think about other things like esports.
Okay, well, just very quickly, what other games have you guys been playing aside from Mechwarrior Online? You know, you mentioned a bit of Battlefield 3 there. Have there been any other games that you have really eaten up into your practice time?
Oh boy, let me get out the list. Would you like page 1 or page 5?
Yeah, there's a lot of games.
A lot of works to if I don't to come up with it, just what everybody pick that one.
Oh yeah, definitely. I've got XCOM. I've got XCOM. That has taken a great deal of my time up.
And a lot of people got League of Legends, Craft 2, that's what traditional competitive first game. And also the counter relationship we have Gattle, which is one of those little indie games that everybody can all with.
Oh yeah, FTL.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody play. We've got our own TeamSpeak service, so I mean, you'll see, you know, 1 or 2 groups. I mean, playing MWO, and then you'll see everybody. A bunch of other people just scared about the other channels playing this or that. I mean, there's a few of us. We'll get together and we'll decide. Okay, we're just gonna go kill zombies. So we'll load up Left 4 Dead 2, and we'll just go, you know, commit mass genocide on zombies, or you know. Some of us will decide, oh, well, we're going to play the new Medal of Honor Warfighter, or Battlefield 3, or we're going to play something completely different. We'll go play Kerbal Space Program, or FTL, or, I mean, whatever. I mean, and that's the other thing of, building that community is the fact that, you know, we're trying to expand to other things. I mean, not quite as heavily as we are MWO, but, I mean, having those options available really does make things bigger. I mean, even going back to PlanetSide 2, I mean, we've got quite a few people that are looking for, or that are playing it, and you know, plan on playing it, myself included. And so we made it making a future expansion of that. Who knows?
And in fact, you preempted one of my questions there, which was how much do you guys actually play together outside of MWO? You know, and again, you've already mentioned this whole community building thing, you know, which I think is fantastic.
Oh, we play a lot outside. There's a good portion, I can't remember the exact number off the head, that plays Guild Wars 2 together. We actually used to, right before the founders all got in and then open beta hit, where everyone could play Mechwarrior Online, that we had weekly gaming nights where we just pick a game, you know, something that everyone can access, most enjoy. Usually Happy doesn't, because it ends up being Team Fortress 2. But we find a game to play, and you know, we just get together, find some servers, make our own whatever, and just play together. And we had anywhere from, you know, 10 to 20, even more people sometimes. We filled up an entire TF2 server with just our own guys.
Well, guys, I'm going to start wrapping it up there. Just very finally, can you give us a quick message for the fans? Where can people come find you if they're interested in joining you as a core? Where can they come, you know, just get in contact with you, get involved with you guys?
The best way to find out about us is just go into our website, EridaniPony.com, and, you know, we have our forums there. That's where you apply. You can look over current applicants. We have a fairly large public forum. You know, we have close to, I guess, 50,000 posts in there. Our forums are very active. People can get a feel of the community we have and see whether or not they want to join this. Again, like we mentioned before, you don't have to, you know, religiously watch the show to join. If you just want to join just to hang out with us, you can. You don't have to, you know, particularly enjoy ponies. You do have to put up with it from time to time. It is very heavily themed, but that's the best way to do that. As far as official communications, we have a list of diplomats, recruiters, and of course the admins on our Mechwarrior Online recruitment thread. And you can PM any one of those people on the Mechwarrior Online forums if you have any sort of questions or anything like that.
Fantastic. Guys, thank you very much for spending your Sunday afternoon talking to me, of all people. I hope you've enjoyed being on the show. I've certainly enjoyed having you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Fun. Yes, thank you. And I'm sure Protection thinks the same. He just can't say it because he's going to be Canadian internet.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Goddamn Canadians.
Oh, Happy Spawn's worse. He's a ginger.
I knew you'd bring that up.
It's African sunset. That's all you need to remember, Happy. It's not ginger, it's African sunset. Guys, thank you very much again. Thank you to everyone who's watched us while we stream this live. We will hopefully be bringing these on a regular basis. We're looking to obviously have an interview with the Steel Jaguars, the leadership at some point. We have that up, and we're also looking at Chaos Legion, the runners-up to Run Hot or Die tournament. And with any luck, we'll have some just general podcasts as well, where a couple of the Steel Jaguars guys will talk about the state of the game. If you're interested, if you enjoyed viewing this, please do click the follow on Twitch TV, Run Hot or Die. There should be a little follow button at the top. If you just click that, and then it'll keep you informed about when we're doing these podcasts, when we're putting up gameplay, everything like that. RunHotorDie.com is up and running, and it's functioning at the moment as the pretty much the competitive scene website for those interested in that competitive scene, and it's also got all the details up of the Season 1 for Run Hot or Die League, and hopefully that will be updated on a fairly regular basis. We're just waiting on some of the matchmaking issues being resolved. So thank you once again to everyone. Thank you to Hylius, Happy Spawn and Protection, and hopefully I will see you all next time. Take it easy.